So is Borderlands 4 cooked? Well, that seems to be the question. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am Jonathan, your host here at QuickBird Gaming, and I appreciate you tuning in for another weekly news wrap-up where we cover all the video game news from the past week. This episode's covering the news from 14 to 20 September, and we have a few stories to talk about. Obviously, there's always lots going on in the gaming industry, but I think the big thing that we have to talk about is the release of Borderlands 4 and all the performance problems that have happened, along with some missteps by their CEO. As always, if you are interested in a particular story, all of the timestamps are in the description down below, so feel free to scan down and jump to a story that interests you. In the meantime, let's talk about Borderlands 4. I'm going to start with these two articles from IGN, the first of which was published on Wednesday, 17 September. Borderlands 4 performance gets worse the longer you play on console. Randy Pitchford suggests quitting the game and restarting as a workaround. Players have reported their frames per second count fluctuating and gameplay stuttering on console, even on PS5 Pro. In fact, oddly, particularly on the more powerful PS5 Pro. And then this kind of talks about a couple of the potential reasons for why this happened. And they say they do know that Gearbox is looking into the issue. Randy Pitchford told one PS5 Pro user quitting the game and restarting as a workaround until they sort the problem out. And this has not gone over particularly well, particularly because Randy Pitchford has already spent half of this week gaffing and gaslighting players and basically just pissing people off with his comments. And the bottom paragraph here touches on a couple of those. He's issued confusing comments on why the console version of Borderlands 4 lacks a field of view slider. Promises it would have been possible to break the servers, okay. Told people to code your own engines and show us how it's done. Declared Borderlands 4 a premium game made for premium gamers. And even started telling players to refund the game on Steam if they're that upset. Because it's not just the console, but PC games, or PC players on PC are suffering from a lot of problems as well. And I'll skip over to this article on the 19th, which was published on Friday. Borderlands 4 tech experts say resetting the game every hour should not be an expected solution for players. The tech experts at Digital Foundry have completed their analysis of Borderlands 4 on console and confirmed a gradual worsening of frame rate with continuous play time, even on the PlayStation Pro, 5 Pro, and Xbox Series X. Digital Foundry found performance starts dipping after around 30 minutes to an hour, which it called too intrusive on the overall experience, too regular of an interruption. Even after a completely fresh reboot, the game is still prone to frame rate drops. As a workaround, Pitchford suggested console players quit Borderlands 4 and restart. Digital Foundry's Tom Morgan confirmed this does restore performance, but criticized the solution, saying resetting the game every hour should not be an expected solution for players. And he's absolutely right. It should not be. Now, Borderlands 4 has issued a patch for PC that I believe was launched yesterday. Supposedly covered a bunch of stability issues. I have not seen any verified reporting on how well this has handled things. But Borderlands 4 really, in general, is having some real performance problems. I know there are people with some high-end computers that are not having problems, but there are just as many that are. And this was suboptimal, to say the least. Okay, real talk for a second. Some people are going to pretend that Borderlands 4 has been a failure because of some of these things, because of the performance problems, because of Randy Pitchford running his mouth. They will say it's been a failure. I'm not going to say that because I don't think there's any data that supports that. I think Borderlands 4 is actually doing quite well at the moment, at least in terms of sales and players. I haven't played it. Obviously I haven't played it, and I said I won't play it because I don't like the way Randy Pitchford treats his customers. Having said that, though, there are plenty of people that doesn't bother them, so they have played it. And from everything I've read, Borderlands 4 has corrected a lot of the major complaints with Borderlands 3 that had to do with the writing and the story, some of the gameplay issues, some of the loot issues. from everything I read, the general consensus is Borderlands 4 is doing much better in those areas. And this is the Steam DB page. If I scroll down, first of all, you can see there are about 63% positive reviews. That leaves it with a mixed rating that has come up. I want to say it was 45 to 50% the first day or two it was out. So more and more people are saying it's positive. They're rating it positive, so recommending it. And almost every review I read that is negative does relate to performance issues. So that continues to be a problem. But if I scroll down and look at the actual numbers, it's still hitting 200,000 players pretty much every day. It's peaking 200,000, 199, 181, 195, 214. It's still doing quite well. It's had a little bit of a drop off since it launched, but that's standard for any game. If I roll over to this article from Alina Analytics, and if you don't know, they're a company that estimates how well game sales are going. We don't have any official news from Gearbox or Take-Two, so until we do, Alina Analytics is kind of the only educated guess that we have. Their information is hit or miss, but again, it's probably the best source we have until we have official numbers. They're estimating 2.5 million players and 150 million in revenues. I don't believe Borderlands 4 has been released on any of the subscription services like Game Pass or PlayStation Plus. So players means the number of people who have bought it. If that's the case, they've sold 2 to 2.5 million copies so far across all platforms, across Steam and across the consoles and so on. So that would mean that they are doing quite well. Now, I will say this as well. I go back to this article from 6 years ago, from 2019, when Borderlands 3 released. And they sold 5 million copies over 5 days. And this was also notable. If you can read it down here, if not, I'll read it. Publisher 2K also revealed the threequel has broken its 5-day launch sales record on PC, which is a particularly notable revelation given the fact Borderlands 3 is a timed Epic Game Store release. So for a game that only released on consoles and Epic and not on Steam, which is unarguably the biggest digital distribution platform for PC players. And right now we're sitting at an 8 or 9 day mark at 2.5 million versus 5 million. So what does that mean? Here's what it comes down to for me. I think Borderlands 4 is the latest in a series that is very beloved and very much enjoyed by a large number of players that has been marred by a rogue CEO, bad corporate decisions, and a very messy optimization. You don't have to look far to look at what's happened with Randy Pitchford just this week and his runaway mouth. That doesn't count his gaffes earlier this year, such as this summer, basically telling people that if the game were $80, a quote-unquote true fan would find a way to make it happen. The guy does nothing but come across as tone-deaf and combative, and really Gearbox needs to lock him in a box, or Take-Two I should say, needs to lock him in the rest of Gearbox in a glass box that says break when it's time to make a new Borderlands game, and keep him off social media because he is a net negative for their industry. Take-Two themselves suffered some bad feedback earlier this year as well when the allegation of their games harvesting data and being spyware came out. It does not really matter if it's true in the realm of public relations because they handled it very poorly, and it resulted in all the Borderlands games getting review bombed along with other Take-Two games, and I still don't think they've completely recovered from that black eye. Then you have yet another Unreal 5 engine game that has come out with very sloppy optimization, especially on PC, although this time it's affecting PC and console. It's been bad across the board. And a very resource heavy, suspected memory leaks, and otherwise just handles very poorly. And as I said in an unscripted rant earlier this week, none of these issues are potentially fatal for a game. The problem is that each one starts to chip away at a game's popularity and profitability. Even if each of these things only cost Borderlands 4 1, 2, or 3, 4 percentage points of their potential buyers, over time it adds up. And that is really the problem. Do I think Borderlands 4 is going to be a failure? No. Do I think it will recover its development fees and its investment costs? Yes. Do I think it's going to make a profit? Yes. Do I think it is potentially going to do as good as it could have without these negatives affecting it? Absolutely, it could have done better. And there's no way around that. You can argue that the Unreal 5 optimization is something that was outside their control, but the other factors were, and they just didn't handle it very well. Now, if their attitude is we made a profit so we don't care, then so be it. But I think this game could have been much better and handled just, again, the public relations could have been handled much better, and I think the game would have done better. As it is, like I showed, it looks like it maybe only sold half of what Borderlands 3 did in twice the time Borderlands 3 sold 5 million copies. Borderlands 4, and that was the other thing, Borderlands 4 was already, didn't have what Borderlands 3 did when it released, which was the hype and the love from Borderlands 2 that spilled over to Borderlands 3 and helped sell a lot of copies. People were already naturally cautious, and then all these other things happened. So I think it could have done better. And I think it's kind of a cautionary tale to developers when you say, your game did good, but it could have done great. So, to answer the question I asked at the beginning, is Borderlands cooked? No. But it wasn't seasoned as well as it could have been. Okay, folks, I'm going to step away from Borderlands 4 for the moment and try and hit some of the other game stories from this week. I'll try and touch on them very quickly. Start with this one from PC Gamer, which was published on Wednesday, the 17th of September. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodline 2's DLC clans are no longer DLC clans. La Sombra and Toreador belong in the base game, so that is what we're doing. They say down here, Bloodlines 2 is now a vampire free-for-all after revealing launch DLC that included 2 vampire clans. Paradox and Chinese Room have finally walked back the questionable decision, no longer locking away what are essentially 2 RPG classes. Both clans will now be available in the base game at no extra cost. Thanks to our community for the frank feedback on Bloodlines 2. That feedback made it clear these clans belong in the base game, so that's what we're doing. Corporate translation, they were tired of getting yelled at by their fan base. This is exactly why we yell at these companies when they make these bad decisions, because that is our only voice. Feedback and our dollar. And in this case, there was enough feedback that Paradox folded and actually did something more positive for the players. So that is why I encourage you to always give your feedback to gaming companies. If there are enough voices are speaking up, you will be heard. Next up is this article from Engadget, which was published on Friday, the 19th of September. Microsoft is making Xbox consoles even more expensive in the US. And yes, this is following their recent price increase, which says here the company last raised console prices in May. Now, if you scroll down here, it says this is a breakdown that shows that the Xbox Series S, both models are going up about $20. The Xbox Series X are going up $50. And the Series X 2 terabyte Galaxy Special Edition is going up $70. And the article reads, those are fairly significant increases, especially when you start comparing Microsoft's higher-end Xbox Series X consoles to the competition. For example, the Series X Digital now costs $50 more than a PS5 Digital. For the $800 Xbox Series X 2 terabyte Galaxy Special Edition, that's a mouthful, price comparisons are worse. It's now more expensive than the $750 PS Pro. And this is according to the article. And at least Sony's console gets you better performance for its high price. Again, that's the author's assertion. I don't have the benchmarks in front of me. I'm just reading what they stated. So, Xbox consoles are getting even more expensive. Now, when you are being outperformed by your competition and arguably, according to this article, performing worse, the right move seems to be to raise your prices through the roof. And it's not working out for Xbox, nor has it been. I go back to this article from a year ago from Games Radar. Xbox Series sales are reportedly less than half of PS5s. And the first line here says, it revealed that Microsoft managed to shift 28 million Xbox Series X and S consoles, which was less than half of Sony's previously known 62 million PS5s sold in the same time frame. So even as of a year ago, Xbox has been struggling. Now, I don't know what their strategy is. Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, has publicly admitted losing the console wars, yet they continue to press ahead. They're trying to develop a handheld edition. I'm not sure what they're doing, but this just doesn't seem like the right idea to me, that when you're already lagging behind in sales and performance, to try to raise your prices. But whatever. If you're going to buy an Xbox, it's now going to cost you more. I have this article here from Dual Shockers, published 2 days ago on Thursday, the 18th of February. And I only bring this up because I want people to be more aware of what's going on in the games industry regarding this issue. The article reads, Tencent calls Sony's lawsuit over Horizon clone and overreach. In July of 2025, Sony filed a lawsuit against Tencent claiming Tencent's upcoming game, Light of Motrium, was a little too similar to the Horizon series. With Nintendo suing Pocket Pair, the developer of Palworld, it feels like other companies are getting aggressive with these lawsuits. Nintendo claims Palworld is a blatant ripoff of the Pokemon franchise, even going so far as to put a patent on the gameplay mechanic of capturing monsters and battling with them. Now, from what I understand, these are from the Steam page for Horizon Zero Dawn and Motrium. From what I understand, even though Light of Motrium bears a superficial resemblance to Horizon Zero Dawn, the gameplay is significantly different. Horizon is more of an action-adventure game, quest-based type game with a single story, where I've heard and read that Light of Motrium is going to be more of a survival game and base building aspect. I could have that wrong. I'm just going based on what I've read before. So it sounds like these actually are two different games. And it's down here, Tencent, a little further in the article, Tencent says Sony is trying to turn ubiquitous genre ingredients into proprietary assets, calling Sony's lawsuit startling and overreach an attempt to fence off a well-trodden corner of popular culture. The argument isn't that Sony is trying to protect their creative works and IPs, they're trying to monopolize an entire genre of video games. And then down towards later in the article, it talks a little bit more about games that play similar to Horizon or have similar themes. Again, I bring this up because I want people to be aware of what's going on in this industry. This situation is slightly different than what's going on between Nintendo and Pocket Pair. Tencent is a huge conglomerate. They're not just a game studio that's worth many billions of dollars, in fact, quite a bit bigger than Sony. So this is actually kind of a fight between two large companies, whereas with Nintendo and Pocket Pair, it more feels like Nintendo is bullying Pocket Pair. It's a smaller company, but the danger of these types of actions, in my opinion, is that you risk companies, they cast these nets so wide, these concepts are so wide, these type of lawsuits, that they really risk becoming overreaching. How many FPS games have a superficial similarity or gameplay mechanic similarity? A lot of them. How many real-time strategies do? Many, if not most of them. You get to a point where it is overarching and overextended. And in my opinion, Nintendo is extremely aggressive to the point of being harassing and belligerent with other companies and even non-gaming companies, as I've covered in the past. They tried to sue some supermarket in Costa Rica over the name Mario being in their sign, Super Mario, when it had nothing to do with gaming. That's just who Nintendo is as a corporation. Overly litigious, overly aggressive, and pretty much just trying to use the power of the courts to bankrupt their opposition. Again, it's just my opinion, watching how they operate. Seems to be how they work. And I think these are dangerous because they really risk stifling innovation in the game. Realistically, the best way to do this is if the games are superficially similar, let them play out. The cream will rise to the top, the best games will become popular, and it'll force everybody else to step up. Competition is good for the customer. That's the way it should be. So watch these lawsuits and see how they play out. And if I had my way, both Sony and Nintendo would lose their ass in these, and let's just let the players get some more good games. And speaking of Palworld, I have this article from Video Game Chronicle from Tuesday the 16th of September. Palworld will leave early access in 2026 with a massive update planned for version 1.0. Content updates will be a little quiet for the rest of the year as Pocket Pair focuses on fixing quirks and jank. They say they will leave early access with a big update planned. In a video posted on the game's official YouTube channel, Communications Director and Manager John Buckley explained the content updates on the game will be a little quiet as they shift to fixing quirks and jank, heading up to the game's proper release. And he says, okay, now we need to reach a crossroad, decide what comes next. We have a lot of ideas where we want to take it. We start thinking about Palworld 1.0. Beyond adding new content, there's a lot of cleanup. And we want to take the time to ultimately address those before releasing the game out of early access. With that in mind, we plan to start that cleanup this year, and our goal is ultimately release Palworld next year, and taking the time now to fix those problems will ultimately lead to a better game. They said development of Palworld is not scaling back, he stressed, quite the opposite. Palworld 1 will be a major milestone, and we have truly massive amount of content planned for the 1.0 update. Rather than rushing it, we believe that laying the foundation now will lead to a better game in the end. So, even though they're the target of this lawsuit from Nintendo, Pocket Pair is not holding back. They're going full force ahead with Palworld and releasing more content and, you know, keeping up with the game as if they plan to be here forever, as if this lawsuit's not going to shut them down. And I commend them for that. You know, they're not giving up, and they're going full speed ahead. So, if you're interested in supporting Palworld, they will be out of early access next year, at least if they stick to this schedule. So good for them. I'll go ahead and wrap up with this article from GameSpot from Thursday, the 18th of September. Hollow Knight Silksong has already surpassed 4 million in sales, says a report. And down in the article, the Game Discover Company newsletter has shared its latest sales estimates for Hollow Knight Silksong. 3.2 million copies are estimated to have been sold on Steam, while the game is believed to have pulled in 500,000 each on PlayStation and Switch. The Xbox sales weren't really available, but Game Pass is estimated to be 1.5 million. So, regardless of what happens with AAA games like Borderlands 4 and all the turmoil and churn over that, we still have the indie game space that is still producing some real bangers out there that are widely enjoyed by a lot of people. So Hollow Knight Silksong has already been a massive success and may take Team Cherry several more years to put out another game, but I'm sure people are already looking forward to it. All right, everyone, I am going to leave this video here. I thank you all for tuning in. And as an aside, if you've made it this far, I would ask what you all think of this format. I've gotten some advice recently that has encouraged me to move away from the longer form news videos and to do several short videos in its place over the course of the week. I'm considering doing that. However, I'd like to hear feedback from anybody who is enjoying these videos. If you do like the long form, please let me know. If you think short form would be better, also please let me know in the comments down below. I appreciate that feedback. Also, if you enjoyed this, please consider dropping a like on the video or subscribing to the channel. I am very thankful for all that engagement. All right, we're going to call this one quits. Thank you all for tuning in. You all go out there, live your best lives, and you all stay gaming.